Okay, I think we'll get started now. Thank you to everyone who has joined us today for the North Central IPM Center Pests and Progress series. We're happy to have Scott Larson here to speak on the Tick IPM Working Group. Just to give you a bit of background, my name is Laura Isles. I'm the co-director of the North Central IPM Center. We're one of 4 regional IPM centers funded by USDA NIFA Crop Protection and Pest Management Regional Coordination Program. We have a mission to coordinate IPM across the region by sharing and promoting IPM research, extension, and teaching activities. As we usually do questions and answers at the end, so if you have questions during the webinar, be sure to type that into the Q&A bottom part of your Zoom screen, and then at the end we will go through all questions. So today we're going to look at one of the North Central IPM Center's working group, the Tick IPM Working Group, and we're very happy to welcome Scott Larson, who's going to tell us about ticks and about the Tick Working Group. So I'll let you take it away, Scott.
Okay, thank you. And thanks for inviting me here. Today I'm going to talk about the Tick IPM Working Group. Let's see if I can get it going. Okay, so the whole reason that we have a Tick IPM Working Group is because ticks are a problem. Ticks are, not just a nuisance. They cause problems for livestock, wildlife, and pets. They cause human diseases, which is why we're most concerned about them. And Lyme disease is the most common vector-borne disease in the United States. The cost from Lyme disease alone in the US is estimated to be between $345 and $968 million annually. We have about 900 species of ticks in the whole world, about 90 in the continental United States. But thankfully, only a handful of them in the US will commonly feed on people. And just a little background for people that aren't that familiar with ticks. Ticks are in the class Arachnida, so they're lumped in with scorpions and spiders. And there are 2 kinds of ticks. There are hard ticks and soft ticks. Now, both types can cause human disease, but we're mostly focused on the hard ticks. They're a lot more common to encounter in nature. And the hard ticks, they have males and females. Only the females feed in the adult life stage. But hard ticks have 4 life stages. They hatch from eggs. They develop into a 6-legged larva. That larva takes a blood meal, molts, turns into an 8-legged nymph. The nymph also takes a single blood meal and molts into an adult. These are the 3 most common ticks in the United States that bite people. And so we have the black-legged tick, which is really common in the upper Midwest and the Northeast. There's also a western black-legged tick that occurs in the western states of California, Oregon, and Washington. We have the Lone Star tick, which is a southern species that is slowly expanding its range northward across the United States. And we have the American dog tick, which is quite common in a lot of areas. And there is a western population and an eastern population. So the Tick IPM Working Group was created 10 years ago with funding provided by the USDA North Central IPM Center. The working group organizes and expands the network working to reduce the risk of exposure to infected ticks by collaborating on IPM-related activities, exchanging knowledge, and sharing resources effectively. Here are our 5 priorities that we have. The first one is to educate policymakers about tick-borne disease and public policy options, including a national strategy for reducing tick-borne diseases. We work to improve community education on tick ecology, prevention, and management by building partnerships. And we increase, we work to increase funding for tick-borne diseases and research at state and county public health departments. We also work with them to increase education and surveillance. We've really been working hard to develop and promote the adoption of ITM, which is integrated tick management strategies, to reduce risk of exposure to ticks and pathogens and minimize risks associated with the use of acaricides. That's products that kill ticks And we partner with industry to integrate data-driven ITM solutions. We also coordinate with the Federal Tick-Borne Disease IPM Work Group to complement activities, facilitate collaborative initiatives, especially among academic, government, and non-government organizations. So the Tick IPM Working Group has a number of activities where we really are trying to work with both the public and researchers, Lyme advocacy groups, public health departments, etc. And one of the major things we do is we host a free webinar. It's on the second Wednesday of every month from 1 to 2 p.m. Central Time. We also have a listserv where we share relevant research, news, and resources. We've been putting on a Tick Academy every year. Some years that's virtual, some years that's in person. I'll talk about it a little later. We have a website. The website has just recently migrated from an old WordPress website into this new website. So keep your eye on it. We're still fleshing it out at the moment. Yeah, just a shout out to Leah McSherry. She's kind of the actor behind the scenes that keeps everything running. We'll share her email hopefully later. If anyone's interested in joining the Tick IPM Working Group or joining these webinars, it's free and you just need to send an email to Leah. Yeah, we really work to educate and disseminate timely information, promote tick surveillance and control, and develop what I'm calling various products, which are pest alerts, tick management handouts, that sort of thing. I'll show examples of that later. Currently, the listserv reaches 228 individuals. Our monthly meetings that I mentioned are monthly meetings on Wednesdays, average about 34 attendees, which is pretty good. The last virtual Tick Academy we had over 100 attendees, so we thought that was really promising. So here's what I think is really unique about the Tick IPM Working Group is that we have a really diverse audience. Sometimes when you're talking about ticks and research and surveillance, you really only end up talking to just scientific researchers. But the Tick IPM Working Group is unique in that it has a lot of involvement from the Lyme disease advocacy groups. We also have pest management professionals that join us and present. And yeah, we work with public health employees. And we even have just concerned citizens that join us. Someone who has had a tick-borne disease and wants to learn more about how we can control ticks and tick-borne diseases. So again, yeah, we have monthly webinars. It's the second Wednesday of every month from 1 to 2 p.m. We really focus on highlighting current research, basically research that hasn't really been published yet. This is, we have a lot of great researchers that are part of our group that are really happy to share their data before it's been, written up and published. We talk about new pathogens. We talk about new invasive ticks and how far they've been spreading in the U.S. We promote, different tick testing services, Lyme disease advocacy. We have talked about vaccines, not just for people, but for animals. Yeah, we have lots of talks about biology, physiology, vector competence. We have people from the industry showing off new repellents and new acaricides that they've been testing. But we really are a working group in the sense that we have a lot of individuals that are really talented that come together to, brainstorm, discuss, and help create some of these products that I'm going to be talking about shortly. And the Tick Academy is another one of our bigger activities for the year. And we've done this, we're trying to do this every year. We've done both in-person meetings. We did one in Madison, Wisconsin in 2019. We did an in-person Tick Academy at the University of Minnesota in St. Paul in 2022. And in 2021, because of COVID, we had a virtual meeting that was, very well attended. And so we're going to plan again to do a virtual meeting in 2023 so that we can reach as many people as possible. And the presenters have included, everyone from scientific researchers, doctors and vets, and the pest management professionals and others. But at these tick academies, we really go in depth on tick biology and behavior. We bring people up from zero. If they know nothing, they can come to the Tick Academy. They can really learn, how to ID ticks, what are the diseases that ticks transmit, which ticks transmit those pathogens that cause disease. We talk about diagnostic testing. And then in the in-person places, we've really done a lot of hands-on work. So we take people out into the field to actively collect ticks. And we talk about how to set up a tick surveillance program. If you're a small, public health group that works for a single county and you don't have a tick surveillance program, we really work with those people to try to set up an appropriate tick surveillance program. The Tick Academy has had lots of, specific topics. I just wanted to throw some of these out there. In the last one, we heard from people regarding antibody response of white-tailed deer to repeated tick infestation. White-tailed deer do not get Lyme disease, and so it's really interesting to hear how their active immune system handles pathogens like that. We've had all sorts of talks regarding, there's a Dr. Holly Gaff presented about a tick bot as basically like a Roomba that cruises around a yard and helps control ticks by basically vacuuming them up, kind of picking them up out of the environment. We've heard from Dr. Brian Allen about the effects of fire management and how that affects ticks and tick-borne disease risk. We've had a couple of vets, one talking about dogs and ticks and tick-borne pathogens, and then Dr. Bianca Braun here, she talked about, is just checking for ticks enough, or what else can you do to prevent tick bites and tick-borne diseases? We've heard from a pest management professional, the president of Mainly Ticks. He talked about what it's like to work in the tick as a tick control pesticide, or pest applicator. And so we have a really wide range of people that come speak at the Tick Academy. We even heard from Bobby Pritt, who's at the Mayo Clinic. She helped discover some of the more recent tick-borne pathogens, such as Borrelia mayonii. So it's a great group of people that we get together for that Tick Academy. And then I wanted to talk about the products that we produce. And so one of the things I'm really proud of is we created a comprehensive list of tick management options that includes the best uses and estimated costs. We've developed pest alerts. So when the Asian longhorn tick was new and it arrived in the US, in New Jersey, it was all trying to figure out where this tick might spread. And so we developed a pest alert to help people identify this tick in case they find it in their local area. We've just recently finished the update to the ticks and tick-borne diseases pest alert. It's a really great resource. I'm hoping that it gets a lot of use. We made an instructional video one time just showing people how to collect ticks. We've developed tick collection kits, basically a small collection kit for people to use in case they have a tick on them. They can remove the tick. It has information on the proper way to remove a tick, and alcohol to put the specimens in, forceps to remove the ticks, etc. I'll show you a photo of that in a moment. This tick management options, I believe, yes, it was linked in the chat. Basically, this goes through all the different options for controlling ticks and their best use, how you should actually use them, and then an estimate of cost. It's really comprehensive. It basically has every possible method at the moment for controlling ticks. And I wanted to talk about those briefly. So ticks can be controlled in a number of ways. Of course, pesticide applications like a permethrin spray in a yard or along a wooded edge will kill ticks. Tick control tubes are an option for certain locations that works by basically you have these tubes that you place out in nature, and they are stuffed with a permethrin treated cotton. Then the mice that are the hosts for immature ticks will come to that cotton and remove it and take it to their nests. they'll line their nest with this permethrin treated cotton, and then every time they enter the nest, they're dosed with an acaricide that controls ticks. And so it uses mice to vacuum ticks up from nature and then kill them when they enter the nest. Similarly, there's a bait box that works by it's basically a small contraption that has a bait inside, and then it has a little entrance. And when small mammals enter that, they are dosed with a fipronil. It's on a wick, so they walk through and they get a dose of fipronil, basically the same thing you might use on your dog to prevent ticks and mites. There's a 4-poster deer system, which is a really interesting idea. It works by targeting deer, which are the major host for adult black-legged ticks. The deer go up to this feeding station, they stick their head in to get some food, and there are these paint rollers that are covered in insecticide that are then rolled across the head of the deer, which kills ticks that are on that animal. There's orally delivered vaccinations that have been used for wildlife. Not really a commercial option, but an option out there. Of course, you can modify the landscape to make it less hospitable for ticks. That basically means removing leaf litter, cutting lawns short, trimming back trees to allow more sunlight in. Ticks are really prone to desiccation, so modifying the landscape can have an impact on their populations. And ticks in general are hosts of wildlife, and they feed on humans when they have the opportunity, but excluding wildlife from areas can work to mitigate ticks. Of course, tick repellents exist, and they work the same for mosquitoes as they do for ticks in most cases. And personal protection is the normal route that we like to invest a lot of effort into promoting, because ultimately, if you can remove a tick from you before it feeds on you, your chance of getting that tick-borne disease is nothing. And that's the options I wanted to mention. Now I want to point out some of the pest alerts that we have worked on. So like I said, when the Asian longhorn tick was newly introduced to North America, there was a lot of confusion about what this tick looked like and how anyone would identify it. So we created this pest alert to help people identify this tick and address all the animal wildlife concerns. It's mostly a pest of livestock. And then we just created this new national pest alert. I'm really happy with this. This lists all of the ticks for the most part that feed on humans, at least the ones that feed commonly on humans. It has information on how to identify them. And then it has all these range maps that show where these ticks live in the United States. I just wanted to highlight a few of these. Basically, we saw a need for updating these range maps. The CDC has their own set of range maps, but they have not been updated for a number of years, including like this type of new information. There's a recent study that showed that the American dog ticks collected west of the Rockies are a new species. So, we have the most up-to-date information possible and the most up-to-date range information we have. This is the Asian longhorn tick. It is, a map of this distribution hasn't previously been available. So I'm really hoping that people can use this to understand the potential distribution of the Asian longhorn tick. Likewise, the Gulf Coast tick is a tick that has been spreading northward, and not only through the center of the country, but also along the coast, and is now found as far north as Connecticut. Based on the name, it's a Gulf Coast tick. It was really only found around the Gulf Coast previously. So as these ticks have expanded their range, we really wanted to get up-to-date information out there for everyone. This is the video. I'm not going to show it. I'm afraid it'd be a little choppy, but we have this linked on our website. It just explains proper tick surveillance methodology and lots of useful information there. I cannot give a talk about ticks without stressing tick bite prevention. So there are a number of things you can do to prevent ticks from feeding on yourself and your pets even. The first option, avoid tick habitat. While that might be possible for some people, it's certainly unavoidable for a large number of people. Likewise, you can wear long pants and long sleeves that will stop ticks from reaching your skin as easily. But in certain environments, that's not really an option. But what's really good options here are to use an effective EPA registered repellent that includes DEET classically, picaridin, and there's even more natural products like oil of lemon eucalyptus that work as a repellent. You can treat your outfits with permethrin. Um, we recommend treating pants and socks. Ticks are low in the environment, and they normally will come in contact with you, below the waist. So if you treat your pants and socks with permethrin, you're going to kill any ticks that start climbing up you. You can also treat your shirt or a hat. Definitely treat pets that, as recommended by your veterinarian. Ticks can get on pets and pets can come indoors, and then those ticks might fall off of the animal and end up feeding on yourself or family member. So definitely treat your pets. And most importantly, check your body for ticks daily or after outdoor activities, especially if you know you've been in tick habitat. Taking a shower can help dislodge ticks that are climbing on yourself. And a way to kill ticks that might be on your clothes that you haven't noticed is you can put your clothes in a dryer. It doesn't even have to be high heat, like medium to high heat for 10 minutes. That'll kill any ticks that are connected to your clothes. Here are the tick kits that we recently distributed. We made 100 of these and delivered them to the Indian Health Services. They're going to distribute them to a number of tribes in the upper Midwest. And I think that's time. So thanks for having me, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks so much, Scott. We've had, and some questions are coming into the chat, but we'll transfer those over to the Q&A. So we did have a question. I don't know if you can speak to this, but
Sure.
said my son was bitten by a Lone Star tick last weekend during a camping trip. If he doesn't show any symptoms after 3 days, does that mean they're okay? I mean, I guess it would be good to discuss, like, for Lone Star ticks, but in general, you do have a tick. What are the steps to take from there?
Yeah, so first off, I mean, it's nice that you know what type of tick it was. That helps guide what type of symptoms you might be on the lookout for. So Lone Star ticks can transmit a couple of pathogens that cause human disease, and I'm sorry to say that 3 days is not long enough time to wait to make sure that they're okay. You should wait for maybe 2 weeks. And if there's no symptoms at that time, you're likely safe. The Lone Star tick also transmits something. It's called it creates an allergy. It's called the alpha-gal allergy. So people become allergic to eating red meat after a bite of a tick, a Lone Star tick. And this does not happen to very many people, but it does happen. Like even my nephew had this. He lives in Arkansas. But you might not notice that you're, allergic now to red meat until you eat red meat. And so, it's possible that, you should definitely watch the symptoms for longer than 3 days. I'd say be aware for at least 2 weeks.
Very good. We had another question. Given that we had a mild winter in the Midwest, are we expecting a year with increasing prevalence? And I guess, like, in general, what affects tick populations?
Yeah, that's predictions are hard to make. Mild winter, yeah, that's gonna, increase tick survivability. But for the most part, ticks survive underneath the snowpack in places where we have a lot of snow. And underneath that snow and underneath the leaf litter, the duff layer, it's actually not that cold. So they're sort of insulated in there. So it can be a really harsh winter, and that doesn't really mean that it's going to kill more ticks either. Where I am right now up in Minneapolis, we've had drought for the last couple of years, and I would think that the drought actually had a bigger effect on tick populations than a mild winter would. Um, I would say there's going to be more than I'm going to guess that there's going to be more than the last couple of years, but not a huge increase in ticks.
Very good. It said if a male tick is removed from skin, could it transmit disease? And are the male ticks also able to transmit the meat allergy?
Yeah, so male ticks very seldomly take a blood meal from humans or other animals. There are some records of this in the literature, so I'm not going to say it's impossible, but it's really unlikely for a male tick to feed on a person. And yeah, the red meat allergy does come from the proteins in the saliva of the tick. So any tick that's feeding on you, that's a Lone Star tick, has the potential to cause this red meat allergy.
Okay. Another question from Leah. Is there any place in the world where people do not need to worry about ticks or tick-borne diseases?
So that's a great question. My focus is on ticks and tick-borne diseases. So I'm not really that familiar with places where you wouldn't have to worry about ticks. I'm gonna, Antarctica, maybe the deserts, certain deserts. I mean, there's ticks in Africa though that can live in very dry climates. So yeah, I'm sorry. You gotta probably look out everywhere you go.
Very good. Yeah, commented at least in the US. So it sounds like maybe deserts or
Yeah, maybe deserts, really high mountainous areas. I mean, there's a tick that is called the Rocky Mountain wood tick, which basically lives in kind of like the shrubland of the mountains, but it's never above the tree line. So yeah, you could go really high up or really far into the desert to avoid them.
Another question, if someone's interested in the data about prevalence of tick-borne diseases in each state, or if there's any trapping, like where would you recommend they start to search for that information?
Yeah, so yeah, for the diseases especially, most of the diseases that ticks cause are nationally notifiable diseases. So the CDC does have records for tick-borne diseases, Lyme disease, anaplasmosis, babesiosis, ehrlichiosis, Powassan virus. So the prevalence of those pathogens are broken down by state if you go to the CDC's website. Unfortunately, due to COVID, some of the surveillance and updating um, of those disease records has been really slow to happen in the last couple of years. But you will have a very good idea of what's historically common.
I think I'm kind of watching for any other questions to come in, but I just wanted to mention that the chat's been pretty active and links were put in for all of your resources and then where to basically order those pest alerts. We will send out at no charge packets of 50 pest alerts. If you just need like one or two, we recommend people just print from the PDF. But if you are doing a presentation or something like that and want to order some, the links have been in the chat. And we do have another question.
Excellent.
So do male ticks bite but not feed? How do they go through the stages of development? Yeah. Do they feed animals?
Yeah, so yeah, we can't sex the larval and nymphal ticks. I mean, they are genetically male or female. So they do feed as immature ticks. But as adults, it's very rare to see any of them feed on anybody. Um, yeah, and a lot of these ticks will feed on a huge range of animals, from lizards to birds, um, to livestock to people. So yeah, they do feed on a variety of hosts. But the male ticks not really.
Huh. I had never thought about the fact that you can't sex the larva or the nymphs. And
yeah.
I think that is all the questions. So I want to thank you so much, Scott, for this great information. Let everyone know that the recording will be available up on our YouTube usually in about a week. Our next Pests and Progress webinar will be on Wednesday, June 21st, again at 12:30 Central Time. And at that time, we're going to hear from another of our working group, the Youth Pollinator Education and Action with Maya Hazlett and Lynn Campbell. And thank you again, everyone, for joining us. It was a great webinar with a lot of great questions. Thank you.
Thank you.